Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Strong Draws. I am Brett Strong, and today I am working on a panel from some sample pages I'm working on. It's a Spider-Man story that I found on Pencil Jack. I forget the writer's name at the moment. I probably should look that up ahead of time. But I know it's been a while since I've actually uploaded a video. To be honest, there's been a lot of things going on. Not that I'm going to get too deep into, but I am in a new location now and have a little more time, so I'm going to try and get back to making videos. So, been trying some new processes, trying to figure out how to get the best results along with getting a little bit quicker. So, what I've been doing is drawing layout slash pencils in Photoshop here. See, I did the layouts and just roughed everything in here in blue. Well, I did it in gray, and then I converted it to blue line, and now I'm doing kind of final pencils, I guess you could say. And what I do after that is I print it out in blue on paper, and then I do final pencils on top of that. Mainly because there's nuances and control I have with traditional media, kind of pencil and paper rather than in Photoshop or Manga Studio. Again, I don't like penciling in Manga Studio. I'm only working on Manga Studio 4. I hear Manga Studio 5 is really good, but I haven't upgraded to that quite yet. So, again, just trying some things out, seeing how this works. It's only going to be a penciling submission, so I'm not worrying about inks and all that stuff this time around. So yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory kind of what's going on here after that. It's just a normal crowd shot. There's no backgrounds in. I did actually rough it in, and it is on a different layer, so it's actually shut off at the moment, so you can't see it. And I worked it in a bit later, so I mean, it's all the information's pretty much there. As far as what the final layout and panel is going to look like, although again you just can't see it at the moment because I don't have it turned on. So crowd scenes, a lot of fun because you get to do a lot of interesting different types of people. When you draw superhero comics, like I said, this is a short Spider-Man 3-page submission. And when you draw superhero comics, mainly what you draw are big, muscular guys or, you know, skinny, big-breasted women. Which I try not to do too much anyway with the superheroes. I do a little bit, but try not to push that too much. But the fun about crowd scenes is you get to do, you know, ugly people, old people, young people, in some cases kids. This scene takes place later in the evening, so I didn't assume there'd be any kids out at that night in New York City, but I don't live in New York City. Maybe there were a lot more running around than I thought. And so I get to do all kinds of different shapes and types and different things, different kinds of people, different hairstyles, you know, nothing too particular and no one in particular, which is a lot of fun because there's no pressure to it. It's just go in there and just start with a rough kind of skeleton that you're seeing here in blue and see what you can come up with. There's no right, there's no wrong. It doesn't have to look like anybody. Or if you want to throw in your friends, your family, or people you've known, you know, it's just kind of whatever. You can make an amalgam of people. It doesn't, you know, it's just a lot of fun. So, again, just in this process, as you can see, there's no shading, there's no line weights, there's really nothing interesting about it overall. It's more just kind of wireframes, and I will add all that interesting stuff that will give it weight and mass and shape when I print it out and do it just in pencil on the 11 by 17 Bristol that I use. So yeah, again, just kind of having some fun. This old guy here, he was really gonna. I think I'd try and do a couple of different things with him here and there. Wasn't real happy with the way it was coming out, but also kind of the fun of this and kind of the idea of trying to do it this way. Again, I don't know if this method will work. Working in Photoshop digitally gives you a lot of freedom to try things and not worry about paper integrity. Because if you get too experimental with paper and you're erasing all the time, the paper tends to get a little brittle and you can almost erase right through the thing at times. But within Photoshop and doing this digitally, you really don't have to worry about that. You can try different things. But so kind of my purpose in doing this is really trying to experiment and push myself and learn some new stuff without having to worry about erasing everything until I get just what I want. When I can do it in Photoshop, I can manipulate it here and there. So again, it's all about trying to get quicker with the best results possible. So, and this panel actually, as far as the people went kind of quick. I mean, there's I'd say a dozen or so people, figures in this whole shot, a couple close-ups. Only took me about an hour and a half to do this type of line work. So, we'll see kind of where we go from here as far as doing traditional pencils on a blue line printout. Now I have an idea of where I want light sources to go and where I want the line weights to be, and I'm constantly thinking about that as I'm working on this. So, but by doing it this way, again, with just kind of a dead line, as if there's just no variation, it kind of keeps everything honest. Make sure you don't fall into I'm not really sure how to draw this, so I'm just gonna throw a big black area over it. And even if I wanted to at this point, I know the blacks will look okay because everything, all the information is down, it's there, it's good to go. So, again, just working on the old guy's face. Again, this is the fun part of it. Like I said, it doesn't have to look like anyone. You can just add lines and more lines and more lines. And when I get it printed out, if that's the other good thing is you get a second look at it, or even a third look at some points. To where if I don't like it, it doesn't have to stay there. Or if I throw a shadow on, there's still plenty of. I'm confident that everything is there, and no matter where I drop whatever shadows I might drop in, will be right. So now I've mentioned this in other videos, none too recently, but I do have a second monitor hooked up, so I'm zoomed in quite a bit. And you saw earlier, there's times I'll flip the canvas back and forth just to kind of double check my work. Because if you look at something backwards or upside down in a mirror, what have you, you can kind of see kind of what you're missing or if something's off a little bit. So on my second monitor, I have it zoomed out to roughly about the size it's going to be on the page, so I can just keep referencing back and forth to make sure I'm not overworking an area because I am so zoomed in that I may be overworking it, and then when I print it out or start to draw on it, it's going to just kind of disappear and get fuzzy and muddy a bit, which is also kind of the reason I want to print it off and do traditional pencils, is because then I can make sure everything is going to be readable once it's shrunk down to actual comic book size, because I believe it's a little, I think it's like 66% the size of what you actually draw on. It's 11 by 17, which I think the live area is like 10 by 15, somewhere in that area. And when they shrink it down, it's about 66% the size of it. I don't remember the exact dimensions of a comic book anymore. I always have to look that up when I'm making my own. So And you'll see there's some parts that are very, very finished, and there's some parts that are still pretty rough. Um, Again, that just makes it more fun. It's not just tracing at that point. It still gives me room to be creative and add certain details here and there. And plus, there's certain things I know I'm going to do anyway, so there was no need to do it twice. Again, just to kind of save time, there's no need for redundancies as drawing the same lines over and over again. So I am hoping to have these pages done and submitted in the next 2, maybe 3 weeks. I'm taking a little more time than I normally would on this, especially in my storytelling, because that's what I've always been told is kind of the thing I need to work on more than anything. My figure drawing and faces, they're all pretty good. My backgrounds are alright, but sometimes my storytelling, I guess, is a little confusing to some, which is always a real hard line to walk because it's just what you see or I see as clear storytelling because I know what I'm trying to say doesn't always read clear to somebody else. So this has taken me a little more time than normal, and because it is a submission, I want it to be as good as possible, and I do have at least another month and a half or so of deadline. So I'm just making sure, as long as I hit that deadline, I'm gonna be cool. It'll be fine. So I mean, I got plenty of time. If I was actually doing work for somebody or the deadline was shorter, I wouldn't spend quite as much time as I am on this. But if you got the time, use as much of it as possible. There's no reason to rush something that doesn't need to be done right now and have it not be your best work, especially when you're trying to get work. You know, if you want to get work, make sure it's the best possible work you can do. Otherwise, there's no point in even trying, because if you have to explain it or have to tell somebody, I have better work at home, or you know, it's not the I think I could do better. They're gonna ask you why you didn't, and just move past you. So I'm just making sure it's the best possible work I can do. So again, I'm being a lot more critical than I normally would be, or should be probably. But I'm still. But like I said, I know when the deadline is. I'm more than confident I'm going to hit that deadline. So I'm going to use all the time I can to make this as pretty as possible. So we're going to try this guy here again. I figured, let's give him again, draw a muscular guy. It's pretty simple at this point to just drawing a big muscular slab of meat just for the background here. So, alright, we're kind of coming to the end here. Again, I'm sorry for the big gap in time between my last video and this one. Hopefully we'll be doing more, especially once these pages are finished. I will have a lot more time to do more. But again, follow me on Facebook, on Twitter, for all my updates and what I'm working on. I do try to get at least a sketch up every day, if not every other day, onto Facebook. But again, with these pages needing to get done, I am focusing on that. So I'm trying to get stuff out there. But follow me on my social media. I definitely post there more than anything. If you have any questions, let me know and I will try to answer them. Otherwise, we will see you next time. And you guys have a good night. Bye.